Yeah, hello everybody and welcome to the second class on logic. We will continue from where we left off in the last class, and we did truth tables and we studied and, or, not. We studied XOR and we studied the meaning of having a false, false and true, and we also did implication towards the end of the class. So today we will use that knowledge to understand how arguments and debates can be made with logical sense. Okay, and I will tell you something here. We are not going to be talking about the topic of argument, or we are not going to be talking about the topic of debates. We will be talking about the structure of forming a logical argument, because we want to develop a foundation and a scheme of things which you can keep in mind when you construct an argument, or when you come up with some sort of a proof, or a generalization, or you come up with some result. This is what you have to keep in mind. So we will see what that is. Okay, so let's begin. The first kind of argument is called a valid argument. This is a word which many of us use in our day-to-day life. We say, oh, that is valid, or we say that is invalid. In fact, these days, because of the virus and the lot of news that is going on, we look at some data and say, hey, this data looks valid, this data looks invalid, this looks reliable, this looks not reliable. But what exactly is the meaning of a valid argument? It doesn't mean that this argument is correct, or it doesn't mean that this argument can make sense. The meaning of a valid argument is the following. There are two things for an argument. One is the condition, one is the conclusion, right? So when you construct an argument, or when you construct a hypothesis, now we want to come up with the Riemann hypothesis. Let's say, what is the condition there? The condition is that everything should have the real part as half. That's the condition. If that is true, then the conclusion will be that Riemann hypothesis is justified, or there is a pattern in primes, or whatever. The Riemann zeta function has zero. So all those things are conclusions, but the condition is the first one. So an argument will have conditions. It could be more than one condition, and there will be conclusion. So a valid argument is one argument where if the conditions are true, the conclusion should be true. Meaning, the truth of those conditions will imply that the conclusion is true. In that particular argument, whatever you give, whatever rubbish conditions you might give, if those conditions are actually true, then the conclusion will also be true. That is a valid argument. Let me give you an example of an invalid argument so that you get a sense of this whole thing. Let's say my condition is that apple is red, and my conclusion is that mango is a vegetable. This is not a valid argument, because even if apple is red, that doesn't really mean that mango is a vegetable. So the truth of those conditions does not necessarily mean that the conclusion is true. However, if my condition is, these are my conditions. Let's list some conditions now, and let's try to understand them. This is a perfectly valid, beautiful argument. If apple is red, it's a fruit. That's my first condition. Second condition is it is red. Conclusion is it's a fruit. The first question that you will ask is, hey, come on, how did you say that just because apple is red, it should be a fruit? Yes, that is not a very nice thing to say. You cannot say that anything which is red is a fruit, right? But we are not worried about that. We are only worried if the structure of this argument is correct. What does the structure say? Let's write the structure. The structure for this particular argument is very simple. It's saying if A is true, B is true. This is the first sentence. We don't care if A is apple or B is fruit or A is red. No, the structure of this argument, if we ignore the examples and all of that, is that if A is true, B is true. And the second condition is that A is true. And the conclusion is that B is true. This is a valid argument because it is saying if A is true, B should be true, and A is true, therefore B is true. Let me put the therefore here so that exactly what's. So do you know what happens because of this? We had a dummy argument here. If apple is red, it's a fruit, it's red. Conclusion. This is not a real life thing. It's just an example. But based on the structure and the logic used in that particular argument, we came up with this more abstract argument because we don't have examples here. We're just saying A, B, true, false. But because that argument is valid, now you can use it anywhere. If there is any example in the world which follows this particular structure where it says if A is true, B is true, A is true, therefore B is true, this structure of argument can be used anywhere because that argument is valid. You can use it anywhere. See, let's take another example. Let us say that if a child is born in 2000, it is a millennial. A child is born in 2000. So conclusion is it's a millennial. It's a very simple, straightforward argument. There's no problem here. Agreed that the apple argument doesn't make sense, but the structure of the argument is still correct, which is why I say that it's a valid argument. I don't mean to say that it's a logically correct argument, or I don't mean to say that it is all the time this logic of building an argument will give you beautiful research papers. No, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that the structure of that argument is correct. It's valid. It's logical. The structure, not the argument in itself. Let's look at another one. It's slightly non-intuitive. Let's say if, and I'm going to give a dummy example just to make you think logically, because if I give an example which makes sense, it's very easy. Let me give a dummy example. If an alien is blue, it likes math. This is the first condition. Right, condition. The alien does not like math. Conclusion: the alien is not blue. Not very hard, but it's a little twisted. Look at it. What does it say? If an alien is blue, then the alien likes math. That's the first condition. Second condition is the alien does not like math. And our conclusion is that the alien is not blue. Let's look at the same method of first converting this example into something which is abstract. Because the first thing that you should do always in any situation, even in math, you should not let an example fool you. Whether it's a contradiction or whether it's a good example or whatever, you cannot let an actual example decide your hypothesis. You should try to think of it in an abstract sense. So let us get rid of the alien, the blue, and the math, and let us see what this means. This is saying if A is true, B is true. B is false. Thus, A is false. This is the argument which we are doing, the structure of the argument, and we have to decide whether this is a valid argument. We don't know whether it is valid, right? So what does this argument imply? In this example case, it's saying that there's this planet, and it's saying that in the entire planet, if you find an alien who is blue, he will like math. Then you find an alien who does not like math, and you say that that guy cannot be blue. Right? It doesn't suddenly strike as something wrong or something right. It looks a little iffy. Sometimes people can think, hey, come on, how do you know that he's not blue? We just know that he doesn't like math. So let us convert it into abstract. So it's like if A is true, B is true. Let's see what happens now. This means If A is true, B is true says A implies B, right? A implies B. If A is true, B has to be true. And now you're saying B is false. So you say, therefore A also has to be false. If A is true, B is true. Now B is false. So A has to be false. This is a very popular logical argument which says where you decide the see, for example, here the fact that it likes math is decided based on the color blue, right? You say that if the alien is blue, it likes math. In such a situation, when the second condition is not true, then the first one is also going to be false. Because if the first thing had been true, then the alien would have liked math. Think of it this way. If the alien was blue, it would have liked math. Because we know that any alien who is blue likes math. But now we are saying that the alien does not like math, which means it cannot be blue. Because if it was blue, then it would have liked math. So it's a little bit of reverse logic. So it's a very valid argument, actually. If A is true, B is true, B is false, thus A is false. It's like, if you study well, you get a good grade. You did not get a good grade, therefore you did not study well. Now let me ask you a tricky question. I find an alien who likes math. Does that mean that the alien is blue? I find an alien who likes math. Does that mean that the alien is blue? No. It is like I say, let me give the study and example because it's a lot easier to understand. So the statement is, if you study well, you get a good grade. Now the first example was you did not get a good grade, which means you did not study well. That is clear, valid. Now let's look at the second case. If you study well, you get a good grade. Somebody got a good grade. Does that mean he studied well? No. We said that if you study well, you'll get a good grade, but we didn't say that if you don't study well, you will not get a good grade. Or we didn't say that, okay, yes, it could still be possible that that guy did not study well and still got a good grade. All we said was that if you study well, you get a good grade, which means if you didn't get a good grade, you didn't study, but you still probably didn't study and got a good grade, which is possible. The alien could be red and it could be liking math. We don't care about that. But all we're saying is if the alien is blue, it likes math. So if the alien does not like math, it cannot be blue. But it could still like math and not be blue. A implies B. That doesn't mean B implies A. Right? If A implies B, do you know what it means? It means, so this means it's implying, double implying. It means that not B implies not A. Which means if A is implying B, what it means is if B did not happen, then A also did not happen. But it does not mean that B implies A. If A implies B, it doesn't mean that B implies A. All it means is not of B will imply not of A. So the alien does not like math, which means it cannot be blue. But if it likes math, we don't know what it will be. Yes, he could be green and he could be liking math. He could be pink and he could be liking math. But if he's blue, he will like math. So that's another one. And this is fairly straightforward. So these are all, what do you say? This is the meaning of a logical argument. And in next class, I'll probably give you some more. I don't want it to be too abstract and too boring where I just go on talking like this, because sometimes it can be a little irritating. But I think this is a little interesting exercise. So in the next class, I will start off by giving you some problems where you have to look at the argument and tell me whether that argument is valid or invalid. Okay, so we will do that next time, and I'll give you some actual good problems. I want to mention one more thing. There is something called a sound argument, and in a sound argument, all of the conditions will usually be true, so that you cannot have a rubbish argument then. So that is the meaning of a sound argument, but we'll get into that later. All that we are worried about now is a valid argument. A valid argument means if the conditions are true, then the conclusion should be true. That's all it is. The conclusion is true if the conditions are true. If the conditions are not true, then we don't know about the conclusion. But if your argument is valid and your conclusion and your conditions are true, then your conclusion also should be true. That's the meaning of validity of an argument. Okay. So now let's get to the hotel, which is an extremely interesting thing to talk about. And the reason why it is so interesting is because there are so many things in it which are completely open to discuss and debate and conjecture, and we can come up with some things on our own if we want to. So it's not just some thing which is written and forgotten. There are a lot of varieties to that problem. So for those of you who don't know it, I'll quickly tell you what it is. You are the manager of this hotel, and the name of your hotel is Hotel Infinity. Okay, that's the name of your hotel. And the reason you call it that is very simple. It's because your hotel has an infinite number of rooms. Okay, your hotel has an infinite number of rooms, and you already have an infinite number of guests. Let's say that you already have an infinite number of guests in your hotel. That's why your hotel is called Hotel Infinity. Don't ask me about the registration or who cleans the beds and how the laundry happens. That's not my concern, but you are the manager of the hotel. So this is an interesting imaginary thing to think about, so that we can understand how infinity actually works, and then we can discuss about the logic of infinity and how beautiful the concept actually is. So imagine on a rainy day, you have a set of travelers who are coming from some faraway land, and they have a leader who enters your hotel, and he goes to the counter and he says, "Hello, Mr. Manager. Hi, what's up? Yes, so I just have a few guests, and we are wanting to check out your Hotel Infinity." So you say, "Oh, but I have already infinite number of people, and I have infinite number of rooms. But let's see, how many friends have you brought with you?" And the guy says, "Oh, about infinite. I have about infinite friends who have all come with me. They're waiting outside." And then you suddenly feel, "Oh, okay. I had infinite people in infinite rooms in my already almost full hotel. And now there is this new set of people who are infinite in number, and it's raining outside, and I need to give them accommodation." So for those of you who don't know this puzzle, I want to give some time to, I want to give you some time to think about it. How do you make this happen? How do you come up with a strategy where you can accommodate those infinite number of people in your hotel? If you know this answer, please don't tell it, but it's only for those of you who don't know it. Just think about it. You might say that, oh, so okay, there were infinite people, infinite plus infinite is also infinite, so I should be able to accommodate them. But how do you do it? You should tell them to go somewhere, right? You should tell them to go to some room. How do you even make such a phenomenon happen? So we'll think about this for a couple of minutes. And an important question to realize here is we are dealing with countable infinities at this point of time. We are not dealing with uncountable infinities, because there are two kinds. One is countable and one is uncountable. Although it sounds extremely silly to say it, but the uncountable infinity is actually bigger than the countable infinity. If at all something is possible where something is bigger than infinity, the uncountable infinity is bigger than the countable infinity. Okay, somebody says, tell everybody to go into, okay, so that person probably knew the puzzle beforehand, so I'm not going to reveal the answer. I just want to allow everybody to think about it. Very good, very good. Somebody has given an answer. It looks like the person didn't know it, so that's the correct answer. So I'm going to reveal it, because now we are going to go into some more complicated things in that. But the first one, I'll reveal it to you. So what you do is you tell everybody to move to a room which is twice of their current room. Meaning the person in room number 1 goes to room number 2. The person in room number 2 goes to room number 3. The person in room number 3 goes to room number, sorry, person in 2 goes to 4, 3 goes to 6, 4 goes to 8, etc. So all of them can continue to live in the hotel because there are infinite even numbers to accommodate the already residing infinite number of people. And these guys who are new entries to our hotel can all go to the infinite odd numbers that have now been vacated, because all the odd numbers are now empty, and you all know that there are infinite odd numbers and we can accommodate them in the infinite odd numbers. Okay, that's the first part of the thing, which is a little easy to understand. Here comes a slightly more tricky part of this puzzle, which I don't know how many of you already know. So this is done. All these guys are happy, and now you again have a full hotel. All your odd numbers are taken, all your even numbers are taken. You're a happy manager. A few days later, another guy shows up and he says, "Hi, so I was wanting some accommodation." This time you are fully relaxed because you know that even if he has infinite number of people, you can do the same procedure again. You tell everybody to go to the double, and again all the even numbers will be taken. This time by both those who were there earlier and those who came last week. Both of them all will take infinite even numbers, and you can. So that guy says, "Actually, yes. So I have a lot of people with me." Then he says, "Okay, come on, tell me. I don't even care how many you have. You are all fully having your, confidence." And he says, "Actually, it's not people. I brought some buses with me, and those buses have people in them." Okay, then start getting a little worried. So can you tell me what? So actually, I brought infinite buses with me because I have a lot of buses. My father is the owner of some bus company, and I brought infinite buses, and each of those buses has an infinite number of seats. So each of those buses has infinite number of people. So I brought with me infinite buses, and I brought with me infinite people in each of those buses. And now you start getting worried. You don't know what to do. You cannot repeat the same procedure infinite number of times. You tell everybody to go to the double of their room and the next bus comes. That will never happen. So how do you make this happen? There are infinite buses. Each of them are having infinite number of people. And you need to fit them in this hotel. Let's see if you can think about this. It's a very interesting answer. And I want to give you a clue. We are still talking about countable infinities. It is still countable. We're not in infinite. We're not in a uncountable infinity situation. It's still within our control. Because if somebody had brought with them saying, I have a person, I have so many people, I have infinite people with me, and each of those persons has one irrational number, on his forehead, and every irrational number is covered, then you are stuck. You could not do anything. So we are not in that situation. Somebody says, go to another hotel. No, I'm sorry. You don't want your competitors to get infinite buses with infinite people. You will be bankrupt then. Okay, somebody has sent me an answer and I think that's correct, but I want to wait for other people to also think about it. Does anybody have any question? Anybody have has any confusion with regard to this situation? Is there something that you're not clear about? Are you getting too confused about the fact that there are too many infinities going on here and there? So for those of you who don't know the countable and uncountable infinity, the difference is you can actually list all the countable infinities. I mean, you can just go on counting. You'll never reach, but for example, the natural numbers, you just start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can keep going. We're talking about the uncountable infinities like irrational numbers and imaginary numbers and complex numbers and all of that, same thing. Those are, you cannot even think about how many there are. There are just too many. You cannot have a bijection. I don't know if you know this, these functions. You cannot have a bijection mapping between all the natural numbers and all the irrational numbers. It's just not possible. There's too many of them. You cannot. They're not having the same number of elements in them. But if you do a mapping between all the integers and all the natural numbers, they are the same. You might feel that integers are more because there are negative of them, but both are infinite and they are the same. You can match all the negative integers to all the odd numbers, and there you can do all the positive integers to the even numbers. So you can match them, and both those sets have the same number of numbers. Yes, so there is a mapping between natural numbers to rational numbers. Rational numbers are still countable. That is fine because you have them in the form p by q. P is an integer, q is an integer, so you can do some sort of a mapping. That's still fine. But the uncountable infinities are really tricky. But in this situation, they're countable because each of those buses has a countable number of infinite people, right? It's just that there are infinite buses. So what we do is we bring our good old friends, the prime numbers, back to the discussion topic. We know that there are infinite primes. And in fact, let me tell you what happens. Even after we do this room allocation, after we send everybody to their room, almost the entire hotel will be empty, basically. But you'll still have infinite people in rooms, but almost the whole hotel will be empty. Let me tell you how. It's so non-intuitive. Because if you think about the first situation where the one guy showed up and we told everybody to move to their even numbers or odd numbers, the hotel was full. We felt that all even numbers are taken, all odd numbers are taken. In this case, you will feel that most of the hotel is still empty. Because this is what happens. There are infinite prime numbers. So what you do is the existing people who are already in the hotel, you send them all to the 2 to the power n of their room. If they're in room number 5, you send them to 2 to the power 5. If they're in room number 12, you send them to 2 to the power 12. If they're in room number 897,000, you send them to 2 to the power 897,000. Right? The important thing when we do the room allotment is that no two people should be in the same room. So we should be very careful. We cannot send them to just a multiple of 2. We should send them to a power of 2. We know that they're the only guys who will show up there. So all the powers of 2 will have all the people who are currently in the hotel. The first bus in the infinite buses, you send them all to the powers of 3. The second bus, you send them all to the powers of 5, not 4, because the powers of 4 would already be taken by the powers of 2. That's why we only deal with prime powers, because they're all unique. You'll not have 2 prime powers which are the same, because the prime numbers will be the only factors of that particular number. If I take the number 5 to the power 97, the only prime number which will be dividing it will be 5. So each bus is sent to the powers of the nth prime, where n is each bus. So all the prime powers of every prime number will be occupied. But all the numbers like 6, or let's say 3 times 5, which is 15, or 5 times 7, 35, every other composite number will be empty. Nobody will be there in those rooms, because we're only sending them to the powers of primes. Right? Are you able to understand this, how this exactly happened? If anybody has any confusion, please.
Wait, there's another solution. Like after you put the people in towers of 2, 3, and 5, you can put the fourth buses in towers of 6, because the powers of 2 won't have any factors of 3, and the powers of 3 won't have any factors of 2.
Agreed.
So those will also be empty. So the only non-empty ones are the powers of a perfect power, a number that's
the
a perfect
powers
power.
of a prime number. Yes.
Yes, like 1, 4, 8, and 9.
Yes. So yeah, that's also possible. We can deal with the other. We can deal with the powers of those other numbers which have 2 prime factors with them. So their powers will not be matching to this one. So that's a good one. So thank you for this. So Shreyan has a doubt. Let me unmute him. Hi Shreyan.
I know of a less difficult solution. Okay,
Oh,
sir.
less difficult. Oh, okay. So you have an easier solution. Let's listen.
Can you, sir? What it just okay? It goes like 0, 0,
Okay.
0, 1. Okay, 1, 0, 2, 0, 1, 1, 0, 2.
Okay.
0, 3, 2, 0, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 0. 4, 0. These are just the seat numbers and the bus numbers.
Okay. The seat number and the bus number.
Okay, and I'm telling them in order of a natural number, okay, and we can just take the ones we already have as
Okay.
the zeroth bus,
Okay.
okay, and the other ones are 1, 2, 3, 4, and the seed numbers start from 1.
Okay.
So we can just, so if we put them on in a grid, we make the diagonals, okay,
Okay.
and we connect them into a line.
Yes. Yes.
So that is the way we can. So we've got a line that is passing through all. A line is just the basically the natural number line.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Understand. Understand. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
and it's less easy and it's more easy to calculate.
Yes.
You don't need to do so many hours.
Yes. 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 I understood that. So that is the mapping that you're actually doing, right? Listing all these set of the union of all these countable infinities. You're putting them in one grid.
Yes.
Okay. Very nice. Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Does anybody else have any question? Because I'm about to reveal something which I don't know how many of you will be happy about, but I decided it's high time I did that. Let me just get it ready. So until that, I want to see if anybody else has any question. Let me know if anybody has any question. I'm about to give you an answer to one of the questions, and I think you know which one it is, but let me know if anyone has any question. I just have about 13 more minutes and I need to reveal this answer and take all the questions that come after that. So if anybody has any question with regard to the things which I taught today, let me know. Okay. So I'm going to reveal the answer to the alien riddle. Okay. Okay. First of all, I need to remember how it's actually working. So the question is this. So what were the two words that I said, per and bur, right? Okay. Because when somebody asked it to me originally, the things that they told me were uju and ola. And I thought they were too complicated, so I made it as per and bur. They stand for yes and no. They're the same thing. Okay. So the question is this. You pick a guy out of the three. And the question that you have to ask him is, you first point at another guy, or there are two guys standing, okay, and there's this third guy. You go to the third guy and you point at one of the two guys and you ask him, the question is this: if I asked you if he is random, would you say per? The question is, if I asked you if he is random, would you say per? That is the first question that you ask to the guy. So now I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much.